What types in black, can't think for themselves, and has only $15 to their name? People in Instagram comment sections. I made a video a while back explaining that beginners on road bikes do not necessarily need disc brakes. It seems like a lot of people get hung up on the idea of disc brakes and think they're far superior than any other type of braking system, which is somewhat correct, but in other ways is most likely not correct. I've had it a few times where customers come into the shop wanting to convert their bikes to disc brakes, and I honestly do not believe they need it. So I'm here to explain to you why you do not need disc brakes as a beginner road cyclist. And to put this out there, I believe disc brakes are very beneficial for mountain biking. I would almost always get them for mountain biking. Anyways, let's talk about the #1 reason as to why I believe you do not need disc brakes for a road bike: the terrain. Now, I do believe you need disc brakes if you like to bomb hills and reach excess of 30 to 45 miles an hour on almost every ride, or in general have a potential to reach that speed in the first place. I believe the heat dissipation of disc brakes are very beneficial at those higher speeds, and they do work way better than rim brakes. But if you're doing a casual 10 to 15 miles a day, I really do not see a need for them. If you're spending anywhere from $20 to $30 on some quality rim brake pads, you'll get some really good braking. There's this one brand online called Cool Stop, and they make some really good pads that I love. They're very snappy, and on the correct type of rim brake, they could work even better than some disc brakes. And I've never really had problems with the compound squeaking. Also, another major part in the video is I brought up maintenance of disc brakes. Now, I did exaggerate on how much it is going to cost you. It's not always going to cost you $200 a year to maintain your disc brakes, but it will cost you significantly more than your pad brakes. The typical brake bleed that I have seen is anywhere from $30 to $50. And I, as well as many mechanics, recommend to do at least one full bleed every single year. Times 2 brakes, you're looking at anywhere from $60 to $100. Then if you're a pretty avid cyclist and you go through your brakes pretty quickly, especially on some hill bombs, you're going to have to replace your brake pads. And one of the most popular road bike disc brake sets is the Shimano Ultegra disc brake. And by no means are these pads cheap. I've seen them work for around 5,000 miles, which is a year for some people and a couple months for some others. And the typical cost for these are anywhere from $30 to $50 I've seen in some places, which is kind of odd because some places do tax on top of them, which I don't agree with. But in all, you're going to be spending at least $100 a year on maintaining your road bike disc brakes if you actually care about your bike. Some people did comment on the video that they never had to bleed their bike brakes in 2 years of owning their bikes. First of all, that's literally just a neglect of service if you do ride your bike almost daily, which means you will build up contaminants in your brake line and it'll be a pain in the ass down the line once you actually realize something's wrong with your disc brakes. From not bleeding your disc brakes, I've seen people crack their calipers.
But one thing I noticed about the rear brake is the piston is cracked. As you can see, you could kind of tell with the amount of corrosion on the actual caliper, but sadly we're gonna have to replace that. That's about $80 part.
As well as completely having to replace their brake lever on their bike because stuff got inside of it and you cannot remove it. And also, you may destroy your seals. And that's also something I want to talk about: unexpected consequences of owning disc brakes. If you're a beginner to any type of sport, you want to go in and kind of conserve your money because you don't know if you like it or not. And I'd have times where people did indeed crack their Shimano Ultegra caliper. Either a rock flew in between their pistons and boom, went away, or someone stored their bike on a bike rack a little bit wrong and something may have happened. And that's the hidden consequences. Hidden consequences of owning disc brakes can cost you hundreds of dollars if you have a pretty premium set, such as the Shimano Ultegra set. So it may not be within your best interest to just jump directly into disc brakes when you start road biking. And I know the thumbnail is mountain bikes, kind of clickbaited you a bit, but I have more to say. Now, a couple of you in the comment sections may be like, oh, well, stopping power, you know, disc brakes are way better. And again, not necessarily. If you have a good quality set of rim brakes, which cost you about 30 to 40 bucks, you will be way better than most of these disc brake users who buy the bare minimum set. Another big complaint about rim brakes is that they do not stop in the rain. First of all, this is utter BS. And you may also see this a little bit with certain types of disc brakes. You get some water on them and you may see a decrease in performance, which is a given for most of these brakes out there on bikes. Also, some individuals brought up the fact that your rims are wearable items, which I understand why you see that. They may be seen as wearable items because you are putting direct pressure onto the rim, but nonetheless, this will happen regardless. With any type of rim, whether it has rim brakes or disc brakes, you will still see fatigue on the rim, and that's typically when you want to replace the rim. From my experience, having to replace the rim from fatigue is more likely than having to replace it because your brake pads wore through the rim. And if they do wear through the rim, you could just put JB Weld where the brakes contact and it should be good for another 2 to 3 years. Plus, 99% of the time, the compound in the pads are weaker than the compound on the rim, so the pads are going to wear before the rim wears, or the rim will have very minimal wear. And the last thing I'm going to address is that since the pros use disc brakes, that means most people think they have to use disc brakes and that they're farther superior than rim brakes. And I get it. People have been getting into cycling around 2020, 2021, where disc brakes, you saw them on everything and they were really hailed as the holy grail. But if we go back just a few years, around 2018, 2019, pros in the Tour de France were still using rim brakes on their bikes. They were superior on weight to performance ratio. And if you are a beginner, most likely getting into the sport, you're probably going to buy some cheap hydraulic brakes. So in turn, the weight to performance ratio may be way less than what you may be getting with the rim brakes. So unless you're willing to buy those couple $100 brake sets, I really wouldn't go for it. The main reason as to why you decide you need disc brakes is due to the performance of disc brakes, and you yourself have no real backing as to why this performance may help, don't get them. It may be a disappointing money pit that you would have never expected. But again, who am I to say anything? I'm just some random kid on the internet who's been fixing hundreds of bikes over 4 years. And the fact of the matter is, I still have a lot to learn though. So if any of you old heads have any input on this, let me know down below. I'd definitely love to hear you change my mind, and let's see how it goes. Well, all of this is without to say I do one day plan on buying a pretty nice road bike with some disc brakes on it, so I guess I'm being kind of hypocritical. And thank you for watching to the end of the video. If you liked, make sure to subscribe. I do post YouTube shorts daily, and have a great rest of your day.